Hello, so this is Kiana, and in the upcoming video that you're going to be watching, we are going to be evaluating the debate that Andrew Tate had with Piers Morgan. And in this particular debate, we are going to be talking about propaganda appeals. And there are three particular arguments that I intentionally left out of the debate. And the first was card stacking. And the reason why I didn't mention card stacking is because I didn't see that Andrew Tate cherry picked evidence, although we were speaking about specific evidence. It wasn't a culmination of evidence that Tate was trying to point to that made me believe that he was trying to appeal to only a set of statistics or particular data, although that is true that he pointed to one or two clips or videos or images. It wasn't enough, in my opinion, to raise the card stacking argument. The second is the plain folks appeal. And the reason why this didn't come up is because Andrew Tate was poor at one time, and he speaks very candidly about his experiences about being poor, not having food to eat. And so I don't think that he is trying to appeal to our emotions as a rich person who's pretending to understand the lives of poor people. He was poor at one time, which is quite evident in his testimony, and of course, across a lot of the interviews and videos that are out there in the public. So I didn't think that there was a plain folk argument there. Andrew Tate obviously has lived experience as a person who has been impoverished and poor. So I couldn't actually make that claim or to say that he's trying to make that claim without having really experienced that firsthand. And so the third that Andrew Tate, I often forget about this one, but the third that Andrew Tate that couldn't apply to this particular situation is the bandwagon appeal. And that's because Andrew Tate wasn't saying, hey, look, everybody is doing this, so you should do that. Well, he did say that he went and protested in Paris, and he did obviously state that he would have gone and protested. He mentions that he's seen the exact opposite. He says that he didn't see anyone protesting. So I couldn't actually find a bandwagon appeal argument in this debate that he did with Piers Morgan. So out of the seven appeals, I only found four, and I think that that was enough uh, to attempt to shape our opinions and our beliefs. And I think that this propaganda was quite harmful. And you can actually watch that in the next section. Good afternoon. This is Kiana Canada, and today we are going over Piers Morgan's debate with Andrew Tate. And so, in this particular video, what I'll be doing is I will be identifying some propaganda appeals that Andrew Tate made in his arguments with Piers Morgan. Now, before we get into this video, I need to issue a disclaimer. This isn't an attack on Andrew Tate. It's not an attack on his religious beliefs or what he believes. I think that Andrew Tate is an intelligent man who makes some sound arguments at times. Essentially, what this video is going to do is detect some of the propaganda appeals that were present in his debate with Piers Morgan. Now, I believe that partially, and this is not entirely, I believe partially that the feelings that Andrew Tate has about this particular situation is coming from a fatherly place. He mentioned on his Twitter profile, and of course in his debate with Piers Morgan, that he's a father, and that I know that for most parents, if not all parents, this is the last thing that a parent would want to encounter or have to contend with, or be given information that this has happened to their child. So I sympathize with that position that Andrew Tate is coming from, a parent, coming from the position of a parent. Um, and his arguments are from the lens of a parent. And that doesn't mean that all of his arguments are, because if that were the case, we wouldn't really be having this debate now, would we? But we are going to get into some of those propaganda appeals. Again, this is not an attack on Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate has accomplished, I think, a lot in his life. He is um, he's wealthy, and so, he has more money than me. He has more followers than me. He has referent power. He's very influential. And of course, there is maybe a lot that some people would want to learn from him. So again, this isn't an endorsement of Andrew Tate, nor is it an attack on Andrew Tate. It's simply an evaluation of the arguments that he made in his video with Piers Morgan. Now let's get into that. So there are 7 common propaganda devices, and these 7 common propaganda devices, there were, of the 7, I would say that there were 4 that were present in the arguments that Andrew Tate made. So firstly, name calling. What Andrew Tate did was, of course, or we'll get into that later, but the first is name calling. And what that is insulting or demeaning labels which are directed at an individual or group. And then we have glittering generalities. And this is emotionally appealing phrases that are closely associated with highly valued concepts and beliefs, that it carries conviction, uh, without supporting information or reasons. The third is transfer, and this is a technique of projecting positive or negative qualities of a person. And this could be a person, an entity, an object, or a value. Uh, and what it does is, it's in order to make that second value more creditable, or to discredit it. And the fourth is testimonial. A testimonial, what it does is, it consists of a person written or spoken statement extolling the virtue of such, extolling a person, extolling a business, extolling a situation. And we have the plain folks. This is an argument that the speaker presents themselves as an average Joe, just like the common person, who they feel that they can understand and empathize with the listener's experiences and concerns. The next is card stacking, the act of painting uh, or pointing to an individual, to individual cases and statistics. So, of course, this is also known as cherry picking. So you're cherry picking information, and you're saying this is what you should listen to, or this is what you should believe, not that or not this. And then you have bandwagon, the bandwagon effect, which is a phenomenon where people adopt certain behaviors, styles, attitudes simply because everyone else is doing it. Well, they're going out and protesting. So because all of these people are doing it, everybody else should be doing it. That's bandwagon appeal. So we'll continue. And the book that we are actually going to be um, referencing is this one. It's by Robert Jackall, and it's called Propaganda. And first, we need to ask ourselves, why are we fooled by propaganda? And so Robert Jackall contends that propaganda devices appeal to our emotions rather than reason, and that they make us believe and do something that we would not believe or do if we thought about it calmly or dispassionately. So I think that we all could agree that sometimes we look on Twitter and there's a video that comes up, or there is a tweet that comes up, and sometimes it pulls at our heartstrings. It pulls us in one direction, or sometimes it can cause us to really question what is going on. Sometimes it may cause us to feel intense about that particular tweet or that video. And I think that that is why, in Jackall's view, this is essentially why we are fooled by propaganda, is because what it does is it essentially it appeals to our emotions. Now, in Andrew Tate's debate with Piers Morgan, and you'll have to go and watch that debate, because right now we have uh, hackers that are getting into my devices, and they are actually stopping me from being able to screen share any content and really comment on videos as the videos are playing. So I I don't know what they're going to do with this video. We'll just have to see. But at any rate, in that debate with Piers Morgan, what we see there is that Andrew Tate name calls migrants. And so in his in that debate, or actually in a tweet that he posted, and you can see that on Andrew Tate's profile, yes, on his Twitter profile. Basically, what he did was he called migrants undocumented migrants, combatants, and invaders. And this statement sought to appeal to your hate and your fear about migrants, unfortunately. And Tate further states that he didn't see any protest, anyone complaining, and he didn't see anyone outside of the schools and outside of the police stations. And he goes on to say that in the wake of this tragedy, as it was, that locals did nothing. Now, I want you to think about that, to think about what Andrew Tate is wanting us to feel. And I am of the opinion that this was an indirect effort to name call locals and to shame them into uprising. In other words, Tate is indirectly stating, because locals didn't initially react in the way that he thought that they should react, that there was a veil of shame cloaked over them. And this, of course, appeals to one's masculinity. And I think that that's quite unfortunate, because I think he's appealing to the fatherhood. Like, we know that a father wants to protect his kingdom, wants to protect his home, wants to protect his abode. And if there is any threat to that abode, then the father feels like they have to do anything to protect their home. And I think that that's what Tatum is trying to tap into, which can be quite dangerous for communities that have nothing to do with this particular incident, unfortunately. So we're going to move forward, and um, another appeal is basically the glittering generalities. And so I feel that this one is quite um, questionable. Just a moment. I think this one was, in my opinion, it was quite frightening as well, and I'll tell you why. So the reason is that when Tate, what he did was he uploaded the arrest photo of a black migrant to his social media account. And this particular migrant, although there is evidence that he was committed, that he was involved in a prior incident, he wasn't involved in this particular incident. And this is not to exonerate the person in the video, excuse me, the photo. But essentially, what it is what I'm doing is trying to show you that there is a glittering generality here, because this wasn't the person that was uh, that attacked these young girls, unfortunately. Or and what I mean by unfortunately is that what Tate did was pointed to the wrong person, which was quite dangerous. It's unfortunate that the young girls lost their lives in this particular situation. We're all heartbroken by that. But what Tate should not have done is pointed to a different person or another person, spread misinformation or disinformation, because that was quite harmful. And of course, on this picture that we see, that Tate shares, it says demonic monster. And so, what he wants to do is he wants to make his millions of followers mad enough to think of migrants as evil, and to attack people who might look as if they, in his opinion, and of course, excuse me, of course, we see this in his tweet, is that they come off of a boat, straight off of a boat, in his opinion. So I think that that is quite unfortunate for Tate to do that. And this is an appeal, a glittering generality appeal. So let's move forward. Now, before we do, you may say, Kiana, well, you uploaded a video, or you did commentary on a video about Grayson, and that Sonia Massey felt a demonic presence or evil presence in her. Uh, in her presence, she felt an evil presence in her space. And again, this wasn't my words. This was words that were a phrase that Sonia Massey stated. She stated, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And when she stated that, what I did was a full textual and analysis of that word, a biblical one at that, about what the word rebuke means, and why, what Sonia Massey could have been thinking in that moment. And so these weren't my words. This was the words of the victim. So if anyone wants to bring that up, you can see that you can go and look at that textual analysis that I did of the word rebuke, and then you watch that video of Sonia Massey, what she stated, and from a biblical perspective, you would understand exactly what that phrase means. But let's move forward. The next appeal was transfer, that I feel that Andrew Tate did in his debate with Piers Morgan. And I think we all revere social media because, in our opinion, it often seems as it's giving us access to the truth, right? Social media seems to be giving us access to the truth when mainstream media isn't. And so, if Andrew Tate succeeded in getting Twitter to approve of his narrative about the incident, he thereby transfers its authorities. So, this Twitter authority of being the one to tell the truth. So now Andrew is the person that you can go to for the truth on this Twitter platform. Andrew Tate, the wise truth teller. And essentially, I think that that's what he was doing. I've watched a few of his videos, and he has stated very clearly that he is a person that uh, appreciates the truth and often talks about the truth and never would prefer the truth rather than something that is dishonest. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to transfer this authority of truth to himself so that we could rely on, or well, not necessarily me, but maybe his followers, because I don't follow him, but his followers could actually rely on Andrew as the wise truth teller. And we'll move forward. And so lastly is testimonial. So Tatum, he further makes use of this testimonial device by admitting to retweeting a tweet by Nick Fuentes, which blamed the anti racism protest on what he calls Zionist plants. And by sharing that tweet, Tate wants his followers to ask themselves whether Jewish people were behind the riots. And that's quite unfortunate because we understand that in a few situations that this misinformation has the potential to harm people. Firstly, during the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, what happened was there was misinformation that Chinese nationals were the people that actually perpetuated this attack on the former president. They also said that it was Antifa that did it. And then here in this particular situation in the UK, there was misinformation around and disinformation around this particular incident, which was, of course, that an illegal immigrant perpetuated this attack. And that resulted in people being harmed unjustly and unfairly. For example, there was several businesses that were burned down, several businesses that were destroyed. And one gentleman whose business was destroyed was crestfallen. He stood in his business with, you know, I just think as he lost everything that he has built. And he said that the protesters who burned down his building was calling out his name. So they either knew him or had cased that place before. So it was quite frightening for him. And so I think that this is what misinformation and disinformation does. It really harms rather than heals. And I think that we need to be cognizant of that. So, again, I want to refer you to a book. It's called Propaganda. It's by Robert Jackall. And of course, you can actually go and check that out, or you can buy it, you can read it. Um, it actually is a very good read and it's very informative. And if you want more videos like this, so of course, this is just was kind of an evaluation of the arguments that Andrew Tate did in his debate with Piers Morgan. I am going to be doing a lot of these videos because I find them quite interesting. This is really not an attack on the person. It's just more so that I'm very interested in these arguments that are being made and like to know more about them. But if you are interested, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It's at Real Kiana Canada. Again, it's at Real Kiana Canada. You can also follow me on Twitter. It's at Kiana_Canada. Again, my Twitter account is Kiana_Canada. And I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.